Cement companies were sitting with a lot of idle capacity, which meant that pricing power has remained elusive for some time now. February was slightly different, especially in South India. The cost of a bag of cement went up as much as 50 rupees. So, should cement makers cheer this rise, or this was an aberration? Let's pose these questions to the largest cement player in the south of India. Mr. N Srinivasan, the vice chairman and MD of the company, is joining in right now. Mr. Srinivasan, thank you so very much for taking out the time and joining in. Is that the case? Is pricing power looking like it could be back for cement players, particularly in southern India, and then the implications spreading wide to pan-India?
Actually, you have to look at it slightly differently. It is a fact that the last few years, cement industry has worked at low capacity utilizations. When I say capacity utilization, it is difficult really today to have a fix on it because there are so many grinding plants that what exactly is the capacity is a lot of work has to go in to find out what is the capacity utilization for each company. Even now, for example, you take India as a whole, the capacity utilization is, they say, is around 75%. But actually, it could be more. In the south, for example, the capacity utilization was 67, but in the last quarter, it went up to 70%. Now, there is a fact that clinker is not as freely available now as it was earlier. And I had even 2 quarters ago, I had said that capacity utilization is going up, and maybe by the time we come to the last quarter, this quarter, prices also will start to move, which is what is happening. And the answer to your question, will it sustain? I think so. Because the increase is on the basis of fundamentals. The utilization levels are going up. Demand is good. It is not anybody's case as the demand. The year on year, the demand has been very good. In the south, it grew at 14%. So I think the portents are there for prices to remain firm and move up. And also you must understand, in the last 2 years, we lost a lot of price. In a sense, you could also look at this as a correction that is taking place.
Srinivasan, you're saying that demand is also okay at this point, but most brokerages currently suggesting that maybe it's not good enough to sustain compared to the overcapacity that you're seeing within the industry, and that companies are still adding more capacity, which in turn will actually sort of limit pricing power. Is that something that could be a concern, or that's not the reality and there is no overcapacity in the industry right now?
See, overcapacity will be based upon what you state as your capacity. See, the next, this calendar year, for example, you will be able to clearly see whether the stated capacity is the real capacity. And therefore, to some extent, I think the overcapacity is not correctly calculated. There may be some additional capacity in some places. For example, today, if you take the west, north, central, and east, I think capacity demand is almost same. In the south, there may be a little bit of headroom. But I think that will also, the demand will catch up over the year. And particularly after the elections. I do not know what will be the effect of the elections. But post-election, definitely, yes. The current rate of demand, if it continues, I don't see by the end of this year any real overcapacity any part of India.
You mentioned that you would see demand pick up post-elections. Now, in the current scheme of things, private spending, do you think, has been going off? And do you feel that the additional demand that comes in from infrastructure spending from the government in the second half would lead to a substantial kicker for the industry?
In fact, the increase in demand in the last 7-8 months or 1 year has been triggered by infrastructure spending. That is spending on roads, dams, all across the south. there is huge demand for example, you take Telangana, that Kaleshwaram Dam is prepared to take any amount of cement that you can supply. At the same time, private sector individual house building also has kept pace. It is a combination of these two that has propelled the demand.
Okay, so it's probably already on that uptrend, as you say, and there's no additional bigger massive inflow of demand coming in from that segment, according to you.
It's also, you must bear in mind that no great capacity addition is taking place. And today, with all the environmental regulations, with the entry barriers into cement, which really prevent new players from coming in, and the fact that it takes 3 to 4 years to set up capacity, I think you will witness, cement, you must take a 3-5 year view. If I take that view, not much capacity is coming on stream, the demand growth sustains like this, I think it will augur good times for the cement industry.
Okay, let's talk about going back to the first question where you spoke that pricing has been improving and will likely stay this way. Is it enough to cover the additional cost burdens that we are seeing in terms of fuel and logistics?
That's a difficult question to answer, but I think today's price that prevails in the south, and which is the area in which I'm operating, is almost reaching the levels where it can cover costs. I think still some more increase is needed, which will, I think, take place. If not in March, at least in April, I expect that the prices will again firm up a little. And at that point, with the softening of fuel prices, expected softening of fuel prices, I think it is possible that it will match.
Also, could you, help us understand the movement of pet coke prices right now and the implications in the coming few quarters for the industry?
See, when the prices went down, the last 2 years, when cement prices were rock bottom, then the sensitivity to changes in pet coke price was very high. With current levels of price, with the expected levels of cement price, I think pet coke will play a lesser role in the overall scheme of things.
Okay. Anything that as an industry that you see could be a turning point? Like you said, prices are just about coming back to normal from the degrowth that you had seen earlier on. Anything in particular that you could see that could stall this move?
See, I said I do not know what will be the effect of elections. I can't foresee that. But even given the fact that elections, April, May will be consumed by elections, I still see post-elections a good growth. So at the moment, I do not see on the horizon anything that can upset the firm prices that are prevailing.
Mr. Srinivasan, the last time that we spoke, you mentioned these words very categorically that you don't know what they are doing with the cement, but they are simply gobbling it up. You referred to one dam or a southern dam in South India, which is also doing that right now. Is that true for the other infrastructure projects as well? No matter what the output would be, it will be consumed, at least within South India?
Yes, you see, if you look at the increase in cement consumption, a lot of the increase has not come so much from the housing sector as it has from the infrastructure sector. Roads, dams, bridges. Across South, the construction is very strong. And almost all companies in the South, if you take, for example, every cluster is almost fully sold out.
So in light of that, sir, and because there are multiple dealer surveys and some of the surveys not quite, all the surveys not quite in sync with each other, can I get a sense from you as to how prices have moved October, December versus Jan to Feb end right now? You would have the right pulse of how at least prices in South India have moved. If you can give me your estimates about what's happened in the other regions as well, it'll be wonderful.
See, the prices have not moved very sharply upwards in the north or in central India or east or even west, but they did not drop either. So you must read it from the point of view that they did not see any sharp drop in the last year or two, whereas in the south you had witnessed that drop. So that drop has been recovered. I think, see, there are so many brands of cement, and there are so many regions and states, all the 5 states. So every company would have seen an increase of at least 15%, according to me, in the recent couple of months. And some may have seen even more, depending on how their brand is positioned. So it's a brand-oriented increase. Some could have seen an increase of 50 rupees, some could have seen an increase of 30 rupees, some 55 rupees. It depends on where their brands are positioned.
Which is the other point, which most brokerages actually are suggestive of, that it is the more premium brands that are likely to be able to sustain the pricing power. Is that so?
I think today the demand is so strong and broad across the spectrum that I think while that comment may be true, today I think all brands are enjoying improved pricing.
Okay. Just one last question, Mr. Srinivasan, before we let you go, and that's the likely volume growth that you see for the industry come FY20 and FY21. 7% is the estimate that we get. Is that close enough?
See, last year it was 14%. Now, this year, if the elections were not scheduled at this point, it may have been more easier to guess. But I think that 7 to 10% is what I would look at.
Okay. Mr. Srinivasan, one final question from my end as well. For the last 8 or 9 years, the valuation methodology for cement companies has been EV per ton. And somehow large companies like yourselves as well on an EV per ton basis remain cheap. A lot of people believe that the lower return ratios have part role to play out here too. As somebody who looks at and talks to investors as well as the sell side quite often, would you reckon that at some point of time the valuation methodology could change or needs to change as well? Because if we look at EV per ton, that's somehow not quite budging for almost any of the companies.
I'm not an expert on that.
I know.
See, I know to produce and sell cement, but it's difficult for me to answer your question.